one. Hi, morning. Welcome to this press conference being held by the Ministry of Culture. My name is Alex Dongs. I am the press secretary to the Prime Minister. And this morning we have with us the Minister in the Prime Minister's Office with responsibility for culture, Dr. the Honorable Shantal Monro-Knight. She's joined by a panel here who will speak to us about the archives and the steps we will take forward. So joining her this morning will be the Chief Fire Officer, Mr. Errol Maynard. He's also joined by the Chief Archivist at the Barbados Archive Department, Ingrid Thompson, seated to the Minister's right. We also have with us the CEO of the BTI, Mr. Stuart Lane, and he's also joined by the manager for Road, Reclaiming Our Atlantic Destiny, Chereda Grannum, and also with us we have, Ingrid, not Ingrid. Yes, Anne Bancroft. My apologies, Anne. And Anne will also be working with the Archive Department in terms of taking the steps forward to digitize and to, I guess, reclaim our Atlantic destiny, work with Chereda as well. So you also have members of the media here with us who will obviously be able to engage with our panel and to engage and also inform the public on these steps forward. So without further ado, I turn it over to Minister.
Thank you very much. And good morning to all of you. To the press that are here and those that are with us online. We know that this matter, the fire that occurred, is one that has garnered national, international, and regional attention. And we felt that it was important that we provide regular updates to the public in an effort to show that we are intending to be fully transparent and accountable in respect of this matter. I also want to thank all Barbadians who have, through either their words of expression, and in particular those that have written and offered support. We have offers from historians, from students, from people who just want to volunteer, from the private sector, businesses who have said, listen, this is an area that we are either working in and therefore we want to be of support. This is how we do it as Barbadians, as Bajans. When our backs are against the wall, we come together. And this has been a perfect example of us being able to do that. I want to, at the same time, in particular, single out for special mention the Barbados Fire Service. The Barbados Fire Service has been tremendous. I mean, tremendous, professional, and supportive through all of this. I don't think sometimes we realize the assets and the people and the human resource that we have on the island that are able to step up in moments like these. And I really want to thank them for the support. And I've deliberately done so at the very beginning to be able to thank Barbadians and, like I said, the Barbados Fire Service. I also want to assure Barbadians that the government of Barbados has been and will continue to do all that it can to secure these cultural assets, these records, which are a part of our history and a part of our story. The government of Barbados would have launched the Reclaiming Our Atlantic Destiny project in December of 2021. And that project was essentially about doing just that, essentially about creating a pathway for us to be able to secure and protect these records in 2021. And the various elements of that project, one of the signal elements was about digitizing the records to ensure that we are able to protect them. In a matter of fact, the digitization of the records started under the Archives Department. Since 2017, the Archives has been digitizing records. And we would have all heard the Chief Archivist indicate that to date, they have already digitized some 500,000 records already. So that the government had set a pathway in order to be able to protect these assets. In fact, in 2023, the government trained approximately 100 persons. A cadre of 100 persons were trained in the elements of digitization and conservation. And so that from that training, not only serving our purposes, but creating a cadre of persons in areas in which there's a dearth regionally for people who are specialists in the area of digitization and conservation, which is, I am sure, as you would hear as we answer questions from the Chief Archivist and others here, is not just a simple matter of putting paper on a photocopier. But because of the age of these documents, they have to be treated carefully. It's a specialist skill. And so we would have done that training in 2023. Currently, as of today, we have 120 persons that have been working, not planning, have been working since the end of last year and of yesterday at a off-site satellite site in order to be able to continue that digitization process. Just a few weeks ago, we had already begun to move some of those records from the Archives Department in order to be able, again, to have them at that off-site satellite location where they would be secure and then as well allow us to move ahead with the digitization process. That satellite location that I speak to is one that has been given a 4.5 out of 5 rating. 4.5 out of 5 rating by the Barbados Fire Service. 4.5. That location, therefore, has all of the element consultations with the Barbados Fire Service. They would have walked through, provided us with advice on how to make it the most secure. There are specialty tiles, specially configured to be fire retardant, and a number of other measures. So we are sure that that satellite location is as secure as it can be. Just yesterday, we would have had a meeting again with the Barbados Fire Service officials from the Ministry of Housing, the landlords, and other key figures involved in the project, including BTII. And the Barbados Fire Service would have given us a set of additional measures. So outside of the 4.5 rating that we already have, we have agreed a set of additional measures that over the next 10 days will be put in place in order to make sure that that location is secure. Now, I want to say to you that that the Archives Department has been at the Lazaretto since 1964. 1964. So that building and that space was weathered storms and hurricanes and other events. Alongside of that, the archives, under the leadership of the Chief Archivist, was already to move in to put in place further measures to make sure that the archives would be as secure as possible. Funds were made available for fire suppression at the archives. I am aware, based on reports that would have been made, that engineers were invited as well very recently to visit the archives, again, to be able to do some analysis of what was needed. I also want to add that in March of this year, March 2024, the Division of Culture would have undertaken, under a UNESCO project, a regional training, which included the Barbados Fire Service, the police force, and other officials, including some elements of the private sector as well, in order to train them on disaster management and to put disaster measures in place in March of this year. In fact, one of the critical elements of that training was actually simulation exercises. And simulation exercises were undertaken at the Barbados Museum and Historical Society and the archives. In fact, that simulation exercise at the archives included a fire drill, for which, again, we had a full life simulation. Of course, it was focused at that time by making sure that we could protect life, but it was actually responded to, again, by the Barbados Fire Service. I believe 2 tankers were actually called in order to be able to respond. Further to that, we had already been making plans to move the archives into a location as part of the road project at the Newton site. And even as we had this off-site satellite location that already had a 4.5 rating, we wanted to go further to be best in class in the world, so that this new location that would be set up in November, again, not that we are planning to, already in the works, in the next few months, plans were already in train. to move the archives in November of 2024 to that location, in which we have assurance, again, that the structures of that building will be fully fire retardant, that it can withstand a Category 5 cyclone and hurricane. So I really want to assure Barbadians that we have been and will continue to do everything that is necessary in order to make sure that we protect these assets. The fact that we had a lightning strike, a 1 in 1,000, a forked lightning strike, 1 in 1,000 event in the midst of when we were doing this is, I don't even know how to describe it. It was unfortunate, if that's the word. I don't know if that even carries the weight of it. But like I said, we were in the space, again, moving the archives and digitizing those records already. I also want to indicate as well that in the course of the build-out of the project, and also as well how we are intended to make sure that we further protect our assets, that we have already started conversations about how we make sure that we are able to secure further assets where they don't exist in Barbados, so that we can repatriate all of our records that exist elsewhere. So that, again, even before this event, those conversations and committees and lists were already in place for us to be able to do so. What this event has meant, is that will be provided with greater emphasis. And already by Wednesday, I'd asked for a committee to be set up in order for us to be able to make sure that that is done apace. I want to again assure Barbadians that we are treating this matter with the utmost urgency and seriousness. Immediately after the fire, the same day of the fire, by 11 o'clock, we had brought together what I would call is a war room meeting, where we brought together all of the critical players that would be important to make sure that we can chart a path forward. By 1:30, we had 3 different engineers on site at the archives working with the Barbados Fire Service, not only on the building in which the fire took place, which was Block D, but also as well surveying all of the other buildings, the roofs and all aspects, to make sure that we will do whatever it takes. And again, if that 1 in 1,000 event that we had for lightning again tomorrow, that those buildings would be protected. 1:30 of the day of the fire, those engineers were on place. By the end of that day, we had a plan for the establishment of a salvage team that would be able to go in once we were given permission by the Barbados Fire Service to be able, as much as possible, to retrieve, salvage, and triage those documents that we could be able to recover. By the end of the day, on the Tuesday, we had a full list of the equipment that we needed, some of which were already on island again, and I reiterate, because we were already having those discussions, talking about the what-ifs. So we were not starting from scratch. We already had some of that material, that equipment on site that we could quickly mobilize. We also as well identified all of the critical technical support that we would need, and we quickly, by the next day, had just two experts that we brought in from overseas, because our assessment was that, again, all of the critical technical resources we could find on island. By the next day, however, we had those 2 resources on island and working with us. So that yesterday, we were already in the process of salvaging, again, with the direction and guidance of the Barbados Fire Service, all of those materials that could be retrieved. And I want to say to you that I am amazed, when systems that you put in place actually come together. So that I myself was on site when the salvage team was working, those young men and women who, put themselves on the line to be part of that team, and we also had a triage team as well. And I saw when those documents were taken from the fire, and saw some of them being blank, and you couldn't see, and the charred remains. And then going down to that Sahelite venue, and seeing the team being able to show me those same documents that when they brought out, I couldn't see anything, that I was able to actually see writing on them, that I was actually be able to see them being restored. And again, because we had the equipment, we had the expertise already, within a matter of hours, we were able to mobilize that. And so Barbadians, all has not been lost, all is not lost. Again, I want to recall that again, through the quick work of the Barbados Fire Service, that same day on the Friday, we were able to retrieve some documents. We were able to retrieve, I believe, 8 bound volumes of material, as well as a number of other rolled up documents as well. And those right now, again, are being treated for smoke and water damage. Yeah? So I want, please, you to exercise some patience with us. I will not be able to speak at this time to exactly what was lost, again, because we have to treat them through that triaging process. Again, so what happens, and the technical team can speak to that. You have to be able to make sure that the water is soaked. We're going to have to go through a process of freezing some of the documents that have had the most extreme damage before then people can pick through them to actually see what we have retrieved against what was there based on the inventory as well. So that's going to take us some time, but we fully intend, once that process is completed, to be able to give you an update again, so that we can see and we can know what was lost. But as I said, we've already set up a committee that will be fast-tracking that process of seeing if we can recover anything that was lost from other original sources as well. I want to say to you as well, again, that we are intending to handle this process with the utmost transparency and accountability. Even as we await the report from the Barbados Fire Service, we have already called in, and I believe that person will be on island, an independent forensic investigator. Independent forensic investigator outside of Barbados that will be on island to make sure that they, again, work with the Barbados Fire Service, the Barbados Police Service as well, the Barbados Police Service, to be able that we gather all of the information on the incident, again, that we can come to you, to the country, and again, be able to give a comprehensive report. We are cognizant that this is not just about government, this is not just about the Archives Department, this is our story, this is our history nationally, and again, we intend to treat it as such. Outside of that, again, we intend internally to hold ourselves accountable. And therefore, I have asked for complete and comprehensive reports on what occurred, not only in relation to the fire, but as well to our pace of digitization. Because honestly, I would say to you, even though, as I said, we've done a tremendous amount of work and will continue to do a tremendous amount of work, the team working at the Sahelite location has been charged to make sure that they can upscale almost by 10 times the rate of digitization that we were planning to do before. They've been charged as of today to make sure that that happens. But I want a full report, and I've already asked for it, on how the process of digitization has occurred, what were any challenges and bottlenecks that would have prevented us from going as fast as we should have, and also as well a full and comprehensive report on the slate of measures that would have been put in place in order to make sure that we could protect these cultural assets. So I want to give you, Barbados, the assurance and the confidence. I think all of you would have seen my emotion at that scene, and I know that it was a shared emotion just based on your outpouring. Again, that this is something, again, that I want you to know that is heart for all of us here. All of us have a shared part of it. We've been talking to the staff at the archives, and we've provided counseling for them, because we know that for those that are working with these records daily, that it is something of a traumatic experience to see the loss, so that even though you digitize the records, some of them, and you know that we have, that all is not lost, you still feel some sort of lost. The final thing I want to say as well is, always through a crisis there's opportunities, and there's opportunities for us to show who we are and to demonstrate our resilience and to be able to rise. And that is exactly what we will be doing from this process. Again, we've done some good work, but we intend to make sure that we learn the lessons from this and to be able to move forward ever more resilient. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Minister. And at this point, I'll ask the Chief Fire Officer, Errol Maynard, to share some remarks with the media as well. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Barbados. Now, this incident really caused us to reflect, and we have never really had a proposed lightning strike that caused such damage, a fire of this nature. So it means that all of us, not only the Barbados Fire Service, but all of us need to step back and have take fresh guard and look at the different types of hazards that are now approaching our shores or are actually here. And lightning strike now is a prominent item on that list. Means that even how we construct our buildings and the provisions that we put in place to prevent the impact of these hazards are important. And therefore, it is instructive that all of us have a new look at the impact of climate change and the weather systems that are approaching us. On the day in question, at approximately 11:59, the Barbados Fire Service received a call to a structure fire at the Archives. Now, the Archives is on the list of critical facilities that we have, or what we call we basically call them special risks. They're special risks because of what is at stake. It's a lot of ancient records, sometimes the only existing record. So it's on our list of special risks. And so we responded immediately with 2 water tenders, one from the Archivist Fire Station and one from the Bridgetown Port. In a few minutes, we were there. On arrival, the officers recognized that this fire in the upper floor and in the ceiling of the building. Under the command of Division Officer Small, we ordered on some additional resources because we recognize that we have to, as much as possible, save the content of the building. Now, the additional resources meant that we ordered on a tanker to make sure we have additional water. We ordered on the CLP or the ladder truck, and if we need height, we will have that, and also additional personnel. Now, our approach was unique in this case because we normally do not do salvaging and fire suppression at the same time. It's a pretty dangerous strategy, but we did that, and we were able to extract a number of files and documents from the building in the initial stages. But the intensity of the heat and the fire caused us we had to abandon that particular strategy and go for a complete suppression. It means that we were trying to stop most of the damage to the building and the files, but at this stage we had to stop the salvage efforts. Because of the extent, the paper and the age of the paper, it really was ready to burn. It is ripe for burn. It's dry. It doesn't have any moisture. So once it gets the right heat and the amount of oxygen there, it burned really hot and fast. So we were unable to save the building, stop the building from collapsing, the floors, which were all made of wood. But eventually, we were able to bring the fire under control and prevent it from spreading to any other of the structures. So only building D, if I think it's building D.
Block
Block D. That was, we contained the fire in that block. And then what we did, we changed the strategy from doing a full jet to rain down or have a sprayer that we would not damage any records that were still in a state that was salvageable. After that, a case like this, the fire would burn for a long time. There's a lot of heat in the building. So we offered the opportunity to allow there to be salvaging by the experts in the safe areas. So some people went in and brought some of the unburnt documents or the ones that were damaged. And we are still doing that up to this point. We are still on site, and we are still assisting in salvaging whatever can be salvaged at this stage. The whole scenario or the incident means, though, that we have to take a second look at how we protect our critical infrastructure, how we protect our critical documents. We cannot afford not to do it, although sometimes it's expensive, but can we afford to lose it? So if we can't afford to lose it, then we have to find the means and the ways to protect them. And the Barbados Fire Service is willing to work with the Ministry of Culture and all the other ministries that have these critical infrastructures and critical documents and critical resources to find ways to protect them. And that goes for the Parliament, State House, wherever it is. We are willing to work with you to find ways and means to protect these critical infrastructure. Because I can assure you, a thief will take one item. Fire usually take all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief. Just that last point, just one additional thing for me. Again, as you said, the learning from this is that by next week or so, we're hoping to have a meeting, again, with all of the officials as well, just looking overarching at how we are going to protect our cultural assets and, again, documents, not only at the archives, but just nationally as well. So the project that I spoke to, the end result of that is the development of disaster management plans. But we want to make sure, again, that we speed that up, that everybody is on track, and that we take into, again, another incidence of a fork lightning or any other incident that we never contemplated. All of that now would be on the table as we move forward. I think we're open for questions at this time.
Good morning, Rachel Agard, CBC News. You spoke of the process of moving the archives in November. However, given the fire at the Lazaretto, will that process be sped up, or you're keeping it on track for November?
Right. So November was actually a sped up time, and again, a sped up time even before the occurrence of the fire. So November is still the timeline that we're working with. To be able to move. But like I said, again, we are continuing to make sure that we examine where the buildings at the archives, but then we also have the satellite site as well, where again, we will be moving other critical documents from the archives to that location, again, that has that 4.5 rating from the Barbados Fire Service.
It's Jose Nelson, Nation News. You spoke about additional methods that you'll be looking to implement in order to protect these documents. Could you speak to what those are at this time?
Not at this time, because that's something that we're going to confer on and bring everybody to the table in order to make sure that we have everything battened down. I do want to make the point, and we talk about additional measures. I think you're in respect to what the Barbados Fire Service recommended, or you mean just generally nationally over?
But in general, in terms of protecting, well, not just the buildings, to ensure that something like this doesn't just completely gut it, but also in terms of protecting the archives in other areas as well.
Okay. So I think, like I said, we're going to make sure that we bring everybody to do that and create that plan, again, that overall master plan, even as we make sure that various ministries and various sites then also have their individual plans as well in order to be able to do so. But I do want to ask, again, if we can get a response as well from the Chief Archivist and also Bancroft, who's a conservator on the island, and then to just provide also some response to that. Oh, sorry, Willis, you have a mic there, sorry.
Yes. Good morning to our viewers. First, before I answer any question, I would really like to thank the Barbados Fire Service for their support. And I mean, they went beyond the call of duty, especially Divisional Officer Small. When I reached the location, he was there. He was giving me updates all the time and comforted me. And then Chief Maynard came, Deputy Henderson Patrick, and Officer Perch. They really went on the call of duty, and I think the workshop we had earlier this year helped them to understand that it was not just paper that was in the building, but those are documents that have stories there about our families and our ancestors. So I really want to publicly thank them for their support. Late yesterday afternoon, I was a bit comforted because a staff member came to me and told me, Ms. Thompson, we found some documents that we had moved from Block D to Block G to digitize, and there were over 70 volumes of information, and we're still counting some of the things that would have moved from Block D to digitize. So even in terms of us having that inventory of what was supposed to be in Block D, some of the things were actually moved to another location in terms of our digitization unit. And I know persons are concerned, or our main customers are the family history researchers, and I know they're concerned that the records have been destroyed, but I just want to assure persons all of our family history records that we have, those are usually stored in Block B and C, and all of those are still intact. When we resumed with the accepting members of the public, they're going to be still able to continue with their research and so on as it relates to that family history research. Because I find that persons were calling and commenting on social media that all of their family history information has been destroyed. So that is not true. So we just want to assure them that those records are there. And I also want to thank Minister Monro-Knight. She was there on the scene very early. And also Chereda Grannum, she's the manager of Road. They were also there in terms of offering support on the morning of the fire. And Minister would have mentioned measures and things that we are planning to do in relation to securing the documents and so on, so I will not go over that, but please be assured that we're going to do whatever we can in relation to securing not only the archives buildings, but the records themselves. You know, they accuse me of saying that these are my babies. I've been working there for 38 years, and I treat them like if they actually belong to me, you know, and so I'm going to continue to do that and make sure that persons have been reaching out to us locally, regionally, and internationally from all the universities, the UK archives, and so on, offering their support and their help in terms, not only in terms of financial support, along with giving advice on how to go about doing certain things. So as a ministry, we're going to sit, as Minister said, and plan and collect all these offers of help. We've been receiving offers also from our local business community and so on. But you can appreciate that it's just so many days. It feels like a month to me, but it's just probably maybe 3 or 4 days. So you have to give us a chance to really sit down, because we want to make sure that we make the best decision in relation to how we go forward in terms of treating our archival records. Thank you.
And if there's anything you want to add just in terms of what further measures you think we might be able to put in place?
Good morning and thank you. Firstly, I'm going to go over, I will do that, but just thankfully there was no loss of life, and the outpouring of support has been utterly humbling to all of us here on the ground, from everybody regionally, and that helps to underpin how we're going to be going forward. The response for the archives is a collaborative one across all of our national institutions and people coming together to save these objects. So huge lessons are learned from this. Every day there's a post-mortem. There have been vast improvements because I've been working alongside the archives for about 5 years now with the conservation team there, and the improvements that I've seen, it has improved over, I think, 100% as soon as resources are getting access for professional development, as well as improvements in the environment in which these objects are stored, handled, digitized, and conserved. So we continue to build capacity, and we continue to look strategically at succession planning and to funnel resources. I have never come across, in speaking with colleagues, any leader of a nation who has engaged in the preservation and safeguarding of our material cultural heritage. For me, working in the heritage sector for longer than I would like to admit, it's kind of unprecedented, and again, we are humbled by that. And now the onus is on us as heritage professionals in the region to step up and to act and action on what it is that the PM has directed us to do. Thank you.
I just have one more question, and I know this is a bit of a retread of what's been going before. People would be asking, why weren't these digitized, or do we have questions about the pace of the digitization? So from your inside knowledge of it, what is the biggest barrier to be able to digitize these at the pace that you would like to? I know there's a long process, but in terms of resources, is there anything that you are missing that you really need to get to that optimal pace that you need to get everything secured?
All right, I'm going to try to answer that question. In terms of digitization, when you're digitizing cultural heritage material, it's a lot different to scanning documents within an office environment. And persons can appreciate that we have records from as far back as 1635. And since some of these records were taken to the Lazaretto site in 1964, some of them have not been accessed by anyone. They've been wrapped, they've been put away, and you can appreciate that this is 60 years later. So the challenge for us is the conservation part of it. Purchasing the machinery, having the human resource to digitize the material, that is not the issue. The issue is the conservation part of it. It's a science, it's a technical area. I'm sure Anne will be able to explain a bit better. I'm not a conservator, but it takes some time. And even when you're digitizing, the time to digitize an old record, fragile record, is going to take more time than if it's a normal book that is in very good condition. But our challenge is the conservation part of it. Once those documents are conserved and stabilized, then the pace of digitization will actually accelerate for those 17th century and 18th century records. Because we do have records later, that should not be a problem in terms of digitizing, as Minister Monro-Knight would have said, in terms of the number of persons engaged on the road, then we can accelerate that. But in the beginning, we were concentrating on the transatlantic slavery records, and those are the actual ones that need those repairs. But in light of what happened, we have to rethink and to look and see that even some of the later records that can be immediately digitized, to maybe have two areas where we can digitize simultaneously, even if we decide to do some at the archive, some or whatever. But we're still in the planning stages, so I don't want to say anything out of turn, but we will try and we will get what we have to do done.
Yeah. I just want to say that the government has invested significant resources. One of the technical resources that we brought in is a gentleman who has been a curator at some of the most prestigious museums across the world. And what he has said to us is that our equipment now that we have at that off-site satellite location is world standard. World standard. He said he's not seen it at this level really anywhere. We have invested in the best equipment, making sure again that we have the best technical resource to be able to lead the process, and so that of course while we will see what more that we can do in relation to again that conservation, as the Chief Archivist was saying. In terms of the digitization process, we have gone beyond what is expected in terms of the standard in every way. And I also want to say the investment as well that I spoke to just in human resources and personnel. The fact that we took the initiative to train 100 persons in Barbados that would never before have been involved in conservation, digitization process. And I've had those persons trained, and many of them not just trained to put the things very carefully and to treat to them, but are operating at the management level. So we'd have trained them up now at the management level to be able to have that level of human resource again is part of the investment. And the intent, as the Chief Archivist would have indicated, is that while we'd have started with those older records of the transatlantic slave period, the intent was always then that we move on as quickly as possible then to be able to address the rest of the records. In fact, the Chief Archivist had at one point reported that the archives itself had already moved ahead to digitize. I believe Chief Archivist, if I'm correct, would have reported all of the records that could have been digitized for the transatlantic slavery period, so that again the project was intended to make sure, one, that all of those images were of the highest quality, but then as well, like I said, move ahead to pace with digitizing all of the other important records as well. Yeah.
Now that the decision has been made to move the archives, the buildings and the lazaretto, the one that was gutted, has a decision been taken to restore that building, or nothing has been decided what is going to happen with that building as yet?
We haven't decided what will happen, but we've already moved to make sure that we safeguard it. So I think within a day or two, Mr. Lane, we will have a roof on that building, because we want to be able then to secure again from the elements that we were expecting perhaps a little bit more of a bad weather. I think the Chief Fire Officer would have indicated we are having uncertain weather, and we moved, and the team moved very carefully to be able to ensure that we'll be able to secure that building and secure any contacts that we will receive, but we would already put a roof on it, because sometimes you leave it open and then it gets further degraded. And then that would allow us then, once we get over this period, then to make some critical decisions in terms of how we treat to that building, whether or not we will be able to restore it, etc. And that again will I believe, have to be based on the reports from the structural engineers in terms of the integrity of the buildings that are left. Yeah.
Julie Carrington from the Barbados Government Information Service. I have two comments from the live feed that I wanted to share. This is from Angel. How does one confirm that a fire is caused by a lightning strike? What are the visible signs besides fire for the benefit of the public?
Well, in this case, we had some person actually saw when the bolt struck the building, and immediately after, he also reported that he saw the fire. In addition to that, though, we're still looking for the particular galvanized or the site, the discoloration or the damage to the building. So the investigation is still going. We're trying to confirm what the reports said, and that investigation is still going on between the Barbados Police Service, the Fire Service, and it's my understanding that an independent investigator will be visiting Barbados.
Okay, thank you. And the next question from Angel again. What records were stored in Block D?
Yes, some of the records that were stored in Block D, I won't be able to give all, but some of them will be vestry records. We had a few school records, official gazettes and House of Assembly debates, but there were duplicates because we have copies of those in another block. Then we also had the mental hospital records, records of the old general hospital. So that's just a few of the records that we had in Block D.
Okay, thank you.
Before you go, I know that we have the managers of the road project here. So I want to just, before we close, just ask either Mr. Lane or Ms. Grannum just to speak to providing further assurance. One, in terms of the mandate that has been given to speed up the digitization, and also as well the movement to that new location in Newton, and the integrity of that space in terms of its ability to protect, which I've spoken to, but I just want you to hear from the persons who are actually managing it themselves. So I don't know, Mr. Grannum.
Hi, good morning, everyone. As Minister Monro-Knight has stated, significant investments would have been made in terms of ensuring that we not only were in a position to do digitization and conservation at scale, but we were able to do it by us, for us. It would have been a very simple process, or a much simpler process to engage externally, wholesale the process, but it was determined at the policy level that it was critical for Barbadians to be able to acquire a lot of these technical skills to be able to do something this significant for ourselves. We're very proud to have contributed to the level of training that has gone into ensuring that these 100 persons are now able to provide these services at some of the highest standards that we have seen, and in a very, very short space of time. As it relates to the new facility to come online at Newton, just to add a bit more clarity to Minister's statement, it's not that we're moving the archives, but we're scaling up the digitization and conservation efforts significantly, almost threefold. At that, archives will cease. In fact, what that will result in is that the archives would then be empowered to serve the various publics in a more digital capacity, and certainly at a more expanded scale in terms of being able to access, as Chief Archivist said, records that were never able to be accessed or interrogated before due to the condition of them. The physical infrastructure, the integrity of the new facility, it is going to be using a patented system called a sprung system, which is a tension membrane type of structure. Very smooth reflective surfaces that provide plenty of natural lighting, reduces the cooling cost and solar gains. It also allows the building to be much more energy efficient. You can imagine the the power consumption that is associated with a digitization activity, especially at the scale that we're doing that at. The facility will be approximately over about 60,000 square feet of operational space, full insulation and very precise interior environmental controls, because of course you have to understand that the records themselves, it is not only fire suppression that you have to consider, but you also have to consider things like temperature and humidity controls, etc., for records of these ages and of that fragility. And that type of environment that's being constructed is actually ideally suited for that type of operational function. The facility is actually going to set a new benchmark in terms of industrial development that meets the climate mitigation needs, as well as, you know, very creative and innovative design standards. It is in fact likely to be the most climate resilient space on island by the end of November. So I can say that with great confidence. Yeah.
And one last from our viewers again, from Margaret Gill. Did Barbados not have digitization at the archives for several decades now? What can the fire service tell us about their own training in respect of records?
I think if you can just pass over the no, not the mic, please. Repeat.
Margaret Gill. Did Barbados not have digitization at the archives for several decades now? What can the fire service tell us about their own training in respect of records?
The training that the fire service would have had in records, I think we've been working with the archive department for a little while, our research and planning unit. But if the archive would have had some seminars with us over the years, it's not really in depth, and from the perspective of being an archivist or such, but it is basically to help some of our officers to be able to handle or to manage these delicate files if they have to interact with them in a fire situation or any other incident.
Someone else asked, do you have plans to ramp up such training?
Well, yes, basically because I think there is an ongoing process with the archives, and our officers were there a couple of weeks ago, in March.
We had the training.
Right,
yeah.
they had some training, and they brought back some interesting comments, and definitely we will be going back there to do some more training.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think that's it. Unless there are any more questions. Sorry. I want to thank everyone, again, who were either online or here with us, members of the press, for engaging with us. And again, in our attempt to make sure that we are accountable and transparent as we move forward. And again, final thing, we will show the best of Barbados in this process. We will bounce back and show our resilience. Thank you.